That's why Deckard can't possibly be a replicant. They really make these things overly complicated sometimes. Talk about complicated. These new flavors, they're getting out of hand, man. Let's get out of here. Let's go do some swords.
One thing you'll find in no short supply among the sword enthusiasts of the internet are reviews of swords and other edged weapons. I've certainly contributed to these as well, although mine aren't nearly as prolific as others yet. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. In a subset of these, you'll find videos of test cutting. Because of course it's no fun to just own the thing, you probably want to know how well it works. Whatever your motivation may be, whether you're a student of martial arts or martial sport, or perhaps a performance artist, whether you're a collector or hobbyist, or just someone who enjoys fantasies of defending friends and family during the zombie apocalypse, it's never a bad idea to be an informed consumer, right? Of course not. But there's a bit of a problem. You see, testing is somewhat ambiguous. We have to ask ourselves, what exactly is being tested here? Is it a test of one's mettle, as in a display of one's sword technique against a particular target? Or is it a test of the metal, as in a demonstration of the utility of a particular sword as a tool for cutting? Often, it's honestly difficult to tell, despite what the person may be claiming or trying to do. Keep in mind, this is not meant to denigrate the efforts of other folks out there. However, I do think it's valuable to approach this subject rationally so that everyone can be a little better informed. When it comes to testing anything, we've got to consider all the possible variables that could influence the outcomes. This is what separates good science from, well, a complete mess. As far as test cutting with swords is concerned, I'm going to discuss what I consider to be the main four: testing medium, object quality, object sharpness, and operator skill. These can be further subdivided, but I'll try to be brief. First, the testing medium. In other words, the target. There are all sorts of media for cutting, the usual including water bottles, fruits and veggies, animal carcasses, clay, bamboo, tatami, and ballistic gelatin. I myself typically use tatami for two particular reasons: its consistency and its consistency. That is, the resistance offered by this material having been soaked for a period of time, and the uniformity of that resistance, not only throughout the target itself, but from target to target, makes this a valuable medium for instruction. All other variables aside, I can easily see what a student is doing, for better or worse, and offer feedback. In fact, there is such a strong correlation between striking mechanics and the specific effects it has on tatami that not only can I tell how a person struck not having watched them do so, but I can even predict how a person's cut will be manifested in the tatami based on how they cut in air. It's not a magic trick, it's causality, it's pattern recognition. Other media are not as good for this instructional purpose. That's not to say they're completely useless, but they may provide only binary results, cut or no cut. And while that's somewhat helpful, there may not be much indication as to why. For that reason, I would save things like water bottles, milk jugs, and fruits and vegetables for amusement and spectacle, rather than instruction. Especially when it comes to things like melons and squash. They are pretty useless, since they're so soft. Take a look at this clip. That was accomplished with the Albion Lichtenauer, which is a blunt sword. I don't mean dull, like it had a sharp edge, which it subsequently lost. I mean the edges are thick and round. Meat, bone, and sinew may be much more realistic and relevant of a target. However, there's one very important point I need to make. Stop hanging it up. Cutting through any target suspended in air causes the wound channel to expand, thanks to this thing called gravity. Prop it up instead if you're going for realism. Clay, ballistic gel, and animal tissue are all deserving of their own videos, so I'll hold off on any further commentary for now. But suffice it to say that having a familiarity with a testing medium, that is, knowing what it's capable of testing for, is a huge part of this venture. By object quality, I simply mean the general quality of the sword itself. Without getting deep into metallurgical analysis, what we're looking for is some combination of sufficient hardness required to hold an edge, and sufficient softness to withstand trauma over a period of extended use. Very hard materials are prone to chipping or shattering, while very soft materials will deform rapidly. Nobody wants to get stuck with a bent or a broken sword. This is somewhat distinct from object sharpness. A high-quality sword, while insufficiently sharp, will be far less capable of doing its intended job, at least as far as hewing is concerned. Conversely, it's certainly possible for an absolute nightmare of a sword-like object to be sharp enough to do some damage. However, one has to understand that the life expectancy of said object is going to be severely limited. As an example, I spent an entire afternoon constructing a sword out of scrap metal, wood, and a few bits of hardware. I like to think of this as my personal interpretation of the late 15th century Italian falchion in the Met. Keep in mind, I have literally no skill as a metalsmith or a sword maker. Actually, can we do a side-by-side? Yeah, nailed it. I'm not even all that good at sharpening my kitchen knives, and yet I was able to make something vaguely serviceable. Finally, we come to operator's skill. This is, like all the other factors, subjective and certainly relative. But if this is what you're concerned about testing, I maintain that it's important to limit all the other variables, especially while you're still learning. Individual skill will influence everything else. If you don't have good foundational skills, cutting with a good sharp sword through a soft target may still feel like striking a brick wall. Once you've achieved some baseline, however, then branch out, experiment with different tools, different media, or set new goals for yourself, like increasing efficiency or reducing telegraphs. My point in all of this is that a little sharpness and a little skill will make up for an otherwise terrible tool, in the same way that a very good, very sharp sword will make up for a severe deficit in skill. A very good but dull sword will make an otherwise skillful user work a lot harder to achieve the same results. And a very bad, dull sword is a lawsuit waiting to happen. To all new viewers out there, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And if you really like us, please join our Patreon. See you again soon.